DC, Gotham anti-hero rises with ultimate powers. Episode 46, The Palace of Hippolyta. How are they now? Hippolyta sat on her throne and questioned Artemis, who had come to report the situation. Artemis scratched his cheek and hesitated before saying, "They've been on the coast for 6 hours. But most of the time, it was the man who was studying the contents of the magic book. Only Princess Diana was watching, and it was only at the last time that he talked to Princess Diana. Looking at Princess Diana's appearance, I seem to have dispelled the idea of learning magic." Here Artemis did not tell Hippolyta the news of Diana and Jiang Li's posting, because she was afraid that Hippolyta would trouble Diana at that time. After all, Diana was also her good friend. Hippolyta nodded after hearing this. She was also very happy to hear the news that Diana had given up magic, so that Diana would have little reason to stay by Jiang's side. When the time in Jiang Li's mouth comes, he will naturally leave on his own, and then Paradise Island will still live a normal life. Speaking of which, it was still Hippolyta who took the initiative to let Diana contact Jiang Li, but now she let Diana stay away from Jiang Li. It seems that Jiang Li's super charm makes her feel that the other party is not a good person even if he is not Ares' person, just like the Greek bell horse Zeus. Okay, you continue to watch them, and tomorrow, I'll ask Diana not to continue contact him, so be vigilant at this time. But Artemis on the side did not think so. She thought that Jiang Li was not a dangerous person, and Diana seemed to like the man, which she had observed for 6 hours. But she didn't dare to say, after all, these are people's family affairs, and she didn't have to mix them. Huh? Suddenly, Hippolyta sensed a magical fluctuation that came from the silver mirror behind her throne. This silver mirror was created by Hephaestus, connected to the magic barrier that shrouded Paradise Island, and could see the situation outside the barrier, and at this time there was a reaction, which means that something has broken into the range of Paradise Island. Hippolyta quickly got up to look. The crystal flickered, and then appeared a steel giant she had never seen before, and on the giant was a strangely dressed man. Another man. What's going on these days? The next moment, Hippolyta came back to his senses and immediately ordered Artemis on the side, immediately gather the Amazon warriors, enter a state of emergency on Paradise Island, and let Antiope go with me to find out. Yes, Your Honor. At the same time, Jiang Li also learned of the arrival of the uninvited guest by seeing and hearing the domineering, and in his perception, that life breath flew down from the sky. Soon, Jiang Li guessed that this may be the official beginning of the Wonder Woman plot. Whether it is a movie or an anime version, it begins with Steve breaking into Paradise Island. Unexpectedly, the time has been skewed, and in his image, Steve entered the Paradise Island during the day, but it is still night. Diana was chatting happily, and seeing Jiang Li suddenly get up, she asked suspiciously, "What's wrong?" Jiang Li was hesitant to take Diana with him, because without Diana and his words, then the Amazon warriors could really behead Steve. After all, no one is as powerful as Jiang Li. But if you don't go, then Diana will delay the opportunity to become Wonder Woman, and when Ares fights, it is estimated that the other party has already accumulated strength because of the war. I've taken you to places, and there are guests from your Paradise Island. Diana nodded, and then sat on her white horse with Jiang Li, the former in front and the latter in the back, and the position seemed somewhat intimate. As the two arrived, soon the two saw a faint fire in the sky, and saw a propeller-type fighter gliding in the air. Steve pulled the lever with his milky strength above, allowing the fighter to glide across the sea, and the sea washed the airframe, slowing down the runaway fighter a little. Finally, the speed became slower and slower, just docked on the shore, and Steve in the driver's seat suddenly breathed a sigh of relief, but he had just walked through the ghost gate. Jiang Li pinched his chin and looked at the body of the fighter jet that was washed away by the sea. If it were not so badly damaged, it might be able to raise the level of science and technology on Paradise Island by a part. However, Amazons living primitive lives are unlikely to be studied. Thinking about it, a third party had also arrived, and it was Hippolyta who led the Amazonian warrior women to them. Hippolyta first glanced at the two people sitting on the same horse, and in her field of vision, Diana seemed to be lying in Jiang Li's arms. But now there was more important to do, and Hippolyta returned her gaze to Steve. At this time, Steve was still looking at the people around him in a daze, because they were all wearing antique ancient Greek clothes, as well as primitive weapons such as spears and bows. If he hadn't seen that most of them were women, and all of them were sexy beauties, it is estimated that Steve wondered if he had landed in some primitive tribe. This time, because of the precedent of Jiang Li, Hippolyta specially brought the lasso of mantra. A golden light flashed in front of Steve's eyes, and the next moment the lasso of truth was put on his body. No matter how he struggled, he couldn't break free, only felt a strong burning sensation. Torture began directly on the coast. "Say, who are you?" Steve wanted to deal with it with lies, but the lasso forced him to tell the truth, and even he was surprised by what came out of his mouth. "I'm Captain Steve Trevor, a pilot of the Multi Expeditionary Force, numbered 814-1921, currently working in the intelligence service of the Empire." Suddenly, Steve was stunned. As an intelligence agent, He actually said the intelligence so simply, and his worldview was shocked. Moldy country? SHHHHH, what kind of country is that? I have never heard of, Diana asked Jiang Li behind her in a low voice. Two Sabi countries. Jiang Li has always been so polite since he was a child, simple mouth odor, ultimate enjoyment. Episode 47, why did you show up on Paradise Island? The torture continued. Steve's expression at this time was uglier than crying, and he didn't want to come here, but on the way back, the fighter broke down. Trust me, I mean to offend you, I was forced to land here. Steve felt the burning sensation of the lasso of truth, and his tone was full of pleading. Beautiful ladies, can you do well and take this thing away? The skin touched by the lasso of mantra is as uncomfortable as touching the oven, even if it is covered by clothes. Hippolyta ignored Steve's pleas, and in her eyes, there was no good treatment for captives. Name what your mission is. Steve desperately resisted the divine power of the lasso, but how could mortals resist the power of the artifact? I am a spy. My mission is to steal secret information on the biological and chemical weapons of the German army. If I can bring the experimental notes back to the intelligence department, we can win this war. The word war was extremely harsh in the ears of Amazons, and even Jiang Li could feel that Diana's entire delicate body in front of him shook slightly. Antiope frowned, and she leaned into Hippolyta's ear and said, where there is war, there is Ares, and this may be a warning. Undoubtedly telling us that he's back. Hippolyta's face was a little ugly. It seemed that what she was afraid of still came, and Ares had almost recovered and started the war again. She looked at Jiang Li, who was watching the play, and said softly, what do you think? You are also from the outside country, and you know more about things outside than we do, and you think that the war in the mouth of the captives was not the work of Ares. Therefore, people's eyes all looked at Jiang Li, who was sitting on the horse watching the play, even Diana, they all hoped to know from Jiang Li's mouth that this was not Ares' doing, but just a farce. After Jiang Li thought for a while, he spoke, do you want to hear bad news or good news? Hippolyta frowned, and although he was a little dissatisfied with Jiang Li's current state of mind, he still asked patiently. Let's hear the good news first. The good news is that this war was not caused by Ares. Diana turned her head and asked, what about the bad news? The bad news is that Ares is involved. Steve then noticed that there was another male present, and he didn't know what to do, and he subconsciously asked, how do you know this? Jiang Li swept Steve, who was tied by the lasso of truth. I haven't bothered you yet, you yourself came up and asked me. I really don't have a little captive self-knowledge. Since I can completely avoid the detection of Paradise Island, then I have some means to know this information. Soon, Hippolyta and the others, who had been skeptical, were mostly persuaded by Jiang Li's reason, and indeed the latter had means they had not seen before. But it is far from enough, because Jiang Li has not been questioned by the truth lasso, so they are not sure what they say. Since there is this precedent of Steve, then they plan to let Jiang Li also try the power of the truth lasso. Before Hippolyta could speak, Jiang Li jumped off his horse and took the initiative to come to Steve's side, grabbing the lasso of truth with one hand. I am not from Ares, and I have no ill will towards Paradise Island, let alone hostility towards the Amazons. Jiang Li cleverly dodged other important information, such as knowing the plot of the world line and having the identity of a system and a traverser with him. The ability to deal with the lasso of truth with other truths before they are questioned. Seeing this, Hippolyta and the others also really let go of their hearts, and Hippolyta took the initiative to step forward and said with an apologetic face, I'm sorry I broke the trust between us, but I ask for your understanding, because this is really important to us. Jiang Li nodded in understanding, and then sat back behind Diana. Steve was dumbfounded. Why was he a prisoner, and Jiang Li was treated the same as a VIP, and he was sitting with the beautiful beauty? Could this be his back garden? Wait, why did he? Before Steve could say anything, he was yelled at by Mina Lip, who was leading the lasso of truth. Shut up. Hearing this, Steve had to obediently shut up and do his duty as a prisoner. After all, there were no people present who were his, and it was not a big deal to admit it. Hippolyta looked at Steve again and continued to ask, did anyone else follow you when you came here? When Steve heard this, a look of hesitation suddenly appeared on his face, because he knew that there were German chasers behind, and he was afraid that after saying it, these women would cut him. The lasso of truth glows gold, and Steve is forced to say the truth. Yes, there is. As soon as the words fell, the magic barrier in the distance moved, and an uninvited guest suddenly appeared in the originally calm ocean. A German warship was heading towards them. Seeing this, Hippolyta looked at Steve angrily, and with a wave of his big hand, he ordered, find someone to put him in prison, and the rest will follow me to meet the enemy. And then she shouted to Diana, Diana, take your excellency. Diana refused, without hesitation. No, I'm also a warrior of the Amazon, I'm going to stay here and fight alongside you. Jiang Li, who was watching the mother-daughter emotional drama in the back, sighed helplessly, and he jumped off the white horse and ran towards the warship. Episode 48. Wait, leave. Diana saw Jiang Li rushing up to deal with the enemy, and her pretty face couldn't help but be anxious. In her eyes, this was undoubtedly a move to send death, and in the previous interaction, she knew that Jiang Li's body was not as tough as her. When Hippolyta saw it, he couldn't help but feel good about Jiang Li. Since he helped them Amazons, he should be friends of the Amazon and Paradise Island. Then, Hippolyta and the other Amazonian warriors, as well as Diana, were dumbfounded, and Jiang Li was actually running on the sea. The sharp-eyed Diana saw what was going on under Jiang Li's feet. It turned out that the sea water under Jiang Li's feet had frozen into ice cubes, and she noticed that Jiang Li's originally black hair gradually turned silver-white at this time. Hippolyta saw that Jiang Li was gradually approaching the enemy army, and she immediately ordered, "Shoot arrows at the enemy army." As soon as the words fell, the Amazon warrior, who was ready to attack, released the arrow in his hand. The rain of arrows in the sky crossed the river and flew towards the enemy troops on the warship, and the German troops, who were originally preparing to shoot at the river, were interrupted by the flying arrows and quickly found cover to hide. Jiang Li's eyes froze, his hands waved violently, and suddenly the sea was turbulent, and with a loud boom, 2 huge water dragons soared up. Everyone on the shores of Paradise Island was stunned, and everyone had a deeper opinion of Jiang Li. It turned out that this person's magical attainments were so powerful. Steve, who was escorted by the Amazonian female warrior, was the same, and then recalled that he had found trouble with Jiang Li in his words just now, and suddenly felt that he would not be very good in the future. As soon as the picture turned, 2 water dragons rushed towards the warship, and the strong current knocked the soldiers on the warship away and fell into the ocean. Such a scene was reflected in everyone's eyes, and those Amazonian female warriors blushed one after another, all attracted by Jiang Li's invincible momentum. Huh? Diana opened her little hand and took the snowflakes falling from the sky, a little confused. Why is it snowing? It is clear that Paradise Island is like spring all year round, and it is impossible to snow at all, but the falling snowflakes in front of you will not deceive. Look. Diana's thoughts were interrupted by a coquettish cry, made by an Amazon, and everyone looked towards where she was pointing. Jiang Li stood above the head of an ice dragon, looking down at the struggling German soldiers on the sea, and then his eyes lit up with a faint blue light. The palms were slightly raised to the sky, and the next moment a strong wind blew around them, forming a cold ice storm, which was extremely cold. Phew! A white ice storm swept across the sea, sparing neither soldiers overboard nor warships. The poor soldiers didn't even have time to scream, and they were frozen into ice sculptures by the cold ice storm, and the huge steel warship turned into ice and sank to the bottom of the sea with the intruders who drove it. Jiang Li withdrew his hands, and the sea returned to calm, as if the previous invaders had never come. Looking at Jiang Li's heroic back, Diana's eyes shone, and the invincible power was undoubtedly an unforgettable trace in the latter's mind. The Amazon warriors, seeing the death of the enemy, raised their weapons and cheered. Hippolyta did not shout to stop their cheers, at least none of them had a sister sacrifice, and they also had a strong friend, which made Hippolyta feel a little happy. When Jiang Li returned to the shore, both Hippolyta and Diana came forward to greet him. "Your Excellency, your power is truly amazing. Your magical attainments are no one in my eyes comparable to you, except for the gods." Hippolyta gave his highest rating. Jiang Li shook his head to indicate that it was nothing. Looking at Diana's adoring eyes, he couldn't help but smile and quip, "Do you regret not learning magic?" Without much thought, Diana replied, "No, I still don't think magic is for me." In fact, in Diana's heart, her curiosity and interest were never magic, but Jiang Li's person and the outside world. Seeing the interaction between the two, Hippolyta immediately shook her head helplessly, and the relationship between them was developing faster than she thought. Okay, that's the end of your small talk, now it's time for us to get down to business." Hippolyta immediately interrupted the interaction between the two and said solemnly. Diana also put away her playful smile, because she knew that there was now a word called war that was haunting them. Antiope also came over and held an emergency meeting on the beach. Just now you also saw and heard, now Paradise Island can be said to be no longer safe, and Ares' strength has almost recovered, and will soon return and invade Paradise Island. When Hippolyta mentioned Ares, her face was very ugly, because she had fought with Ares and knew that Ares was powerful and difficult. Diana didn't think Ares was terrible. She hugged Jiang Li's shoulders and said, "We are united Amazons, we can win him once, we can win him a second time, and we still have this powerful helper." Antiope saw that Hippolyta's face darkened directly because of Diana's intimate act of holding Jiang Li's shoulder, and she immediately coughed a few times to remind Diana. But how could the now stupid Diana know Antiope's hint? Hippolyta ignored Diana's movements and looked straight at Jiang Li. "Do you have anything you want to say?" Jiang Li also knew that Hippolyta and the others wanted to know what their opinions were. "I think that Paradise Island has been hiding for thousands of years. It's time to fight back, and you can't be passive." Jiang Li's words met with the approving gazes of Diana and Antiope, and if it were not for Hippolyta's pressure, Antiope would have planned to lead the Amazons to sea to find Ares. Hippolyta fell into deep thought, and after some time, she answered her decision to the other three present. Episode 49. No, we can't. In addition to Jiang Li, Diana and Antiope looked at each other, but they did not expect that Hippolyta directly denied the idea of taking the initiative. Disappointment flashed in Antiope's eyes. She knew what her sister had paid in the last battle with Ares, and the blood of many Amazon sisters had forged the Paradise Island today. Diana asked her doubts directly, why? Why can't we come together to bring down Ares as we did before? At this time, Diana was like a simple girl who had seen too many stories, and did not know what the cost of that war was. Hippolyta turned and left, saying as he went, I cannot lead my people to other people's wars, we can no longer lose anyone. Since the liberation of the Amazons, the original Amazons have been directly reduced by half, and if they are against Ares again, I am afraid that there will be no Amazons. In the past, Zeus and Hera were willing to help them, but without the blessings of too many faiths, they were no match for Ares at all. After all, the war was always there. He will not use his divine power to help the Amazons, and if he has helped the first time, there will be no second time. Antiope glanced at Diana with apologetic eyes, although she was a main war faction and wanted to help Diana talk. But Hippolyta was her sister and queen, plus she was also a participant in the war at the time, and she knew that peace was not easy to come by, and this matter can only be considered in the long run. Diana looked at the departing figures of Hippolyta and Antiope. She felt very lost. She originally thought that the Amazons were never afraid of war, but the Amazon she was proud of chose to escape. Jiang Li, who could not participate in family affairs on the side, had to pat Diana's back to show comfort, who knew that Diana threw herself on Jiang Li's chest and sobbed softly. Jiang Li had a headache, and now Diana is just like a little girl. She is sad after being trained, and she has not grown up to become a Wonder Woman in the future. It seems that you still have to go through the baptism of war to be reborn into the real Wonder Woman. Jiang Li could only pat Diana on the back all the time, and after comforting her, Diana raised her head and looked straight at Jiang Li with both eyes. The next moment, a surprising word. Let's get out of here. Jiang Li was stunned when he heard this. How could this be so similar to the feeling of elopement? If he eloped with Diana without permission, Hippolyta would not be able to chase him and kill him. But then, Jiang Li also knew Diana's purpose, which was nothing more than the same as the original work, intending to go to the outside world alone to fight Ares alone. But Jiang Li didn't plan to mix Diana's storyline, he just wanted to stay here, and then when the time came, he immediately patted his ass and left. Diana saw that Jiang Li was hesitating, and then squeezed the latter's hand with both hands and looked at him with two watery eyes. Please, I can only trust you now. Okay, I'll accompany you. After Jiang Li's hesitation, he could only helplessly agree to Diana's request. Anyway, Ares doesn't need him to make a move, Diana should be able to deal with the other party. Right? Jiang Li suddenly felt that he agreed too quickly, because in the original work, Ares was able to lose to Diana, who suddenly exploded because of Steve's death, and it was full of moisture. There are so many wars in human history, large and small, how much nourishment has been provided to Ares, and there is no reason to lose to Diana, who has awakened divine power. Could it be that all demigods are such a heavenly existence? For example, a certain Spartan bald. Yes. Thank you, off. Seeing that Diana, who swept away the loss, became lively, Jiang Li was also in a better mood, and sure enough, sometimes men like pure things. After being accompanied by Jiang Li, Diana, who was in a good mood, returned to the Amazon palace with him and happened to pass by their council hall. Hippolyta and the Amazons interrogate Steve, who he brought back. Steve knelt on the ground, and when he saw the scene of all the women in front of him, he couldn't help but be a little stunned, and muttered, "Oh, I haven't had such a dream since I was 13 years old. Tell us, what is the purpose of your national government sending you to our land?" Driven by the lasso of mantra, Steve can only tell his own truth. Our government didn't know about it, and I came here just by accident. The corners of Steve's mouth twitched. Sometimes he really hated this thing that allowed him to tell the truth, without the slightest privacy. Antiope didn't have much interest in the interrogation session, and she suddenly saw Diana and Jiang Li passing by, and with curiosity, she followed the two. What are you going to do? Seeing that her sneaky actions were discovered, Diana was immediately so frightened that she could only obediently turn around and talk to Antiope about her plans. The corners of Antiope's mouth rose slightly after hearing this, and she was suddenly very happy that Diana had her own choice. Go get the artifact, it's of no use to us, but it must be of greater benefit to Diana. Diana never expected that Antiope actually promised to help her hide her decision to leave without permission, and let herself take the Amazon artifact. Thank you, Antiope. Seeing Diana pulling Jiang Li's departing back, Antiope smiled slightly, and then said to behind him, "Can't you just pull your face and say goodbye to your daughter?" Sister. It turned out that Hippolyta had already listened to their discussion behind the wall. Hippolyta stood with Antiope and sighed in her mouth. Diana has grown up after all, and is no longer the little girl we look at. Antiochus was a little puzzled why Hippolyta clearly stated that Paradise Island would not participate in the war of human beings outside, but allowed Diana to venture out to the outside world alone. Hippolyta felt the look in her sister's eyes, which reflected Diana's back. In the end, I feel that Diana has a different mission than us. I can't protect her for the rest of my life, and I hope my decision is the right one. Episode 50, Diana took away the artifacts in the temple, the sharp sword of Vulcan, the round divine shield, and the familiar Greek battle dress. But unfortunately, the current lasso of truth is in the hands of Hippolyta and others, and Diana has no intention of coming over. After all, they are now secretly leaving Paradise Island. The bright moon is like a shining jewel, reflecting the surface of the sea, and the ripples of the sea, like thin lines, are woven into a peaceful picture. Jiang Li was packing the supplies on the wooden boat, while Diana was standing on the shore and letting the wind go, when suddenly she saw Antiope and Hippolyta beside her. Mother, mother. Diana realized that her sneaking had been discovered, and she was still a little nervous. A smile appeared on Hippolyta's face, and he hugged his daughter and whispered in her ear, "Good journey, my dear daughter." Diana was slightly stunned, the corners of her mouth smiled slightly, and she hugged Hippolyta hard, and responded with a in her mouth. Antiope held a lasso of mantra, glowing with golden light, followed by Steve, who was tied by a lasso of mantra. "Take him with you, Your Excellency Jiang is here, and I don't worry about what he will do." Antiope then handed the lasso of truth to Diana along with Steve. At this time, Steve was bitter, but he was happy in his heart, because he was finally able to leave this ghost place that seemed to be heaven, but in fact hell. The three of them sat on the wooden boat, and Diana stood at the stern, looking at the Paradise Island that was getting farther and farther away. Soon, the sad eyes disappear and are replaced by unwavering eyes, whose duty is to bring down Ares and save the world. Steve sat at the bow of the boat, looking like he wanted to talk, but finally said, "Two gentlemen and ladies, can you help me loosen my bonds?" His arm hadn't moved for a long time, and the lasso tied to him was burning his skin, making him live in pain. Diana was kind, and with a gentle pull of her hand, the lasso of truth let go of Steve and automatically returned to the former's hand. Jiang Li looked at Diana and asked, "Are you hungry?" Diana was a little puzzled why Jiang Li asked this, but still nodded. I saw Jiang Li wave his arm, and blisters wrapped in fish floated on the surface of the sea, and then Jiang Li picked up the Vulcan sword and poked it, and the fish died on the spot. Then Jiang Li opened his mouth and exhaled towards the fish, and what came out was a raging fire, and soon a fragrant smell came. Diana's eyes lit up, and she couldn't help clapping her hands, then took the freshly grilled fish and ate it in small bites. Jiang Li looked at Diana who was eating grilled fish and smiled slightly, and then he felt Steve's gaze. Jiang Li turned his head and glanced him up and down, and stopped looking at him. Steve forced his face bitterly, because he knew what he meant from Jiang Li's eyes. It was nothing more than that you are not disabled, and you are a man who will do it himself. As in the original work, they encountered a merchant ship during the voyage, and after Steve's friendly conversation and Jiang Li's force, the merchant ship was very happy to pull them to London. Jiang Li patted Diana, who was still asleep. "It's time to wake up, Wonder Pig." Diana rubbed her sleepy hazy eyes and looked at London, which was full of heavy industry, which was very inconsistent with the outside world she expected. Compared with the birds and flowers of Paradise Island, it is simply rotten. The three came to the street. Steve went to the headquarters alone to deliver the experimental notes, and Jiang Li took Diana to walk down the street. All kinds of novel things made Diana full of curiosity, and Jiang Li patiently made an encyclopedia on the side. Jiang Li took Diana to a clothing store. Even Diana, who is an Amazon, has a heart for beauty. After all, she is also a woman. Just as Jiang Li was admiring Diana's beautiful figure, a voice that had not been heard for a long time came from his mind. System upgrade completed. The system was finally upgraded, and he had to see what was new. The future check-in conditions will be slightly changed, and in the future, only series check-in rewards can be triggered, such as Gotham City, Batman, and Joker. There are 3 conditions for check-in to receive the check-in reward. The rewards will be relatively high level, and there will be no defective products. Jiang Li was dumbfounded when he heard it. Was he dreaming? Why, after leveling up, the check-in reward changed from 3 to the same. Although the system says that the reward will become better, there will be no reward that is of no use to Jiang Li like being proficient in firearms. But it's a loss when you think about it. That's all, gone? I'll rough you. Jiang Li rubbed his temples, not thinking about this system. He was a high-quality person. Now that the check-in conditions have been triggered on Diana and Paradise Island, and now only an enemy of the Wonder Woman series, then it is obvious that the target is Ares. What's wrong with you? The face looks so ugly. As soon as Diana came out after changing her clothes, she saw Jiang Li's face as if someone else owed him money. Haha, nothing. It's just a dog system. Episode 51. After the two walked the streets, they went to the Imperial Cabinet of Discussions, and after Diana translated the experimental notes, the high-ranking officials of the kingdom refused to send troops because they had planned to end the war by surrender. During the process, Jiang Li watched the play expressionlessly the whole time, although he knew that someone was the hidden Ares Buddha, but it was undoubtedly a bad idea to start a war here. This place will become a superhuman battlefield, London will become a ruin, which will again involve the topic of changing the future. At least Jiang Li cannot ignore innocent lives. Not to write another episode. This cowardly behavior of the high-ranking officials of the kingdom was extremely dissatisfied with Diana, because she was an Amazon warrior and would rather die in battle than die in battle rather than live by surrendering. Moreover, so many soldiers on the front line are fighting, but the politicians behind plan to sell them in order to live in humiliation. Steve saw that the situation was not good, so he took Diana and Jiang Li out of the council chamber, and said that we would not sit idly by, and if the government did not send troops, then we could only go by ourselves. Afterwards, Steve went to the helper he asked for, and Diana was sullen because of what had just happened. Why? Why do they want this? Diana never understood what was going on in the minds of corrupt politicians. Diana, don't think that human beings are beautiful, human nature is complex, you will meet other people in the future, you don't rush to contact first, you must see their nature. Suddenly, Jiang Li felt that the teacher-student relationship between himself and Diana remained unchanged, and he taught Diana everything. Time came to the next day. Jiang Li and Diana's group came to the front line, the gray environment, the smoke of gunfire, the cry of babies, and the cry of soldiers. All tell the cruelty of war. Jiang Li witnessed Diana rushing into the enemy's trenches, punching a person alive, and the bullets could not keep up with Diana's speed, like a goddess of war. Aren't you going up and helping? Steve glanced at Jiang Li, who was watching the battle from the side, and asked. The other party was watching the play from beginning to end, and from time to time he moved his head sideways to avoid a few bullets. He had seen Jiang Li's strength with his own eyes, and as long as he went up, the opposite side might be destroyed. No, it's not me who is the protagonist of this battle. Jiang Li looked at Diana, who was possessed by the god killer, with a smile. When Steve heard this, he no longer persuaded Jiang Li to go into battle, but rushed into the battlefield with his friends. Soon, the group came to the town in the original work. The German soldiers were not Diana's opponents at all, they were all killed without leaving piece armor, even the tank was knocked to the ground by her. The local residents warmly welcomed Jiang Li and his group, and after the meal, Jiang Li and Diana walked on the dimly lit rural road. Your posture is so charming today. Thank you, thank you. When Diana heard this, she couldn't help but pin her head to the side, but even so, Jiang Li could see her reddened ears. Jiang Li was also a little embarrassed to don't go to the other side, because he was used to being in Gotham, and the words full of teasing were as soon as he came out. The object is Diana, who has just been born, just like deceiving a little girl who is as pure as white paper, which inevitably makes Jiang Li a little embarrassed. So, how does it feel to be a hero? Jiang Li changed the topic and asked. Diana bit her lower lip and carefully recalled how the townspeople felt when they cheered for her. I didn't come for their cheers, but I was very happy when I saw the genuine smiles on their faces. Jiang Li smiled with some relief and subconsciously touched Diana's head. Diana didn't know what this action meant at first, but when she saw a father not far away touching his daughter's little head with a smile on his face. Snap. Jiang Li looked at his hand that was slapped off in confusion, but when he was wondering, he was held by Diana's hand again. Because Diana saw a couple holding hands intimately. The plot has been advancing, from infiltrating the castle base to destroying the town with gas bombs, and Jiang Li also evacuated the townspeople in advance through Diana's popularity in the town, reducing the casualty rate to 0. Then followed Ludendorff's footsteps to the airport base, where a large number of gas bombs were stored. Diana, you go and solve him, and the others are left to me and Steve. When Diana heard this, she nodded to Jiang Li and the others, and immediately chased in the direction where Ludendorff fled. Steve came over to Jiang Li and said, "Don't you play a little?" After all, I bragged in front of my friends. Jiang Li glanced at him, then stepped forward a few steps, raised his hand slightly towards the sky, and the huge magic power in his body surged wildly, and suddenly a violent bump came from under his feet. Boo! 100-meter-tall earth and rock giant broke through the ground. Thank you. Steve and the others were stunned when they saw this, and they couldn't help but take a few steps back. The scene in front of them was too amazing. Shout. Jiang Li slowly closed his eyes, his consciousness entered the earth and stone giant, and soon he saw German soldiers 100 meters below. Bang bang. No matter how the soldiers shot, they could not hurt the earth and rock giants in the slightest, and they seemed to realize their weakness and ran away. The earth and rock giant raised a foot and immediately stepped down fiercely, and the propeller plane that was originally intended to take off was trampled by the earth and rock giant like a small toy. Steve and the others looked at each other, and it seemed that they were not needed now, because the enemy troops were either trampled to death or ran away early. Episode 52, On the Watchtower. Diana pulled her Vulcan sword from Ludendorff's body, thinking that the war should be over, but she saw several desperate soldiers carrying gas bombs. Did you notice it? Suddenly, a voice sounded in my ears. Diana's sword pointed in the direction where the voice came from, and it was Sir Patrick, who had seen it before at the Council of Heaven. It seemed to be an intuition from the body of a demigod, and she felt that the person in front of her was more like Ares than Ludendorff. Patrick's eyes were no longer as weak as in the kingdom, replaced by an aggressive and tyrannical look. You are Ares. The corners of Ares' mouth were raised, and his hands were on his lower back, seemingly not taking Diana in his eyes. Diana, my sister, you should be aware of what human nature is, these inferior products, created by Zeus. Diana's pupils shrank when she heard this. She was surprised by Ares's words about my sister, and shook her head a little unacceptably. You are lying. From an early age, Hippolyta told Diana that she was born from a combination of earth, rain and blood, and Zeus lightning. It seems that the woman of Hippolyta did not tell you the true origin. In fact, you were not born of Amazon, but the union of Hippolyta and my father, that is, Zeus. Ares said, his eyes couldn't help but show ridicule, whether it was to Zeus or Diana. Drink. Diana could no longer bear Ares' words and rushed towards Ares with a violent outburst. Ares instantly clenched his fist and hit the divine shield in Diana's hand, and the huge force blasted Diana's figure away, flying backwards 100 meters away before landing with difficulty. Diana stood up straight, her head slightly raised, and her sharp eyes looked at Ares, who was hanging overhead. Solve you, and I will return to Paradise Island and destroy all the Amazons under the protection of Zeus. As soon as the words fell, Ares waved his hand, and the scorching flames covered his whole body, and in a blink of an eye, a black armor glowing with silver light appeared on Ares's body, and he held a giant axe in his hand. The next moment, Ares and Diana both charged at the same time, and the sparks brought by the collision of the Vulcan sword and the giant axe illuminated the surrounding darkness. In the distance, Jiang Li suddenly received a warning from seeing and hearing color, and a powerful aura appeared within the detection range of seeing and hearing color. Jiang Li was sure that the owner of that breath was Ares, and then he withdrew his magic power without hesitation, and the 100-meter-tall earth and rock giant collapsed instantly after losing its magic support. Then Jiang Li immediately rushed towards the place where Diana and Ares were fighting. I saw that Diana flew upside down tens of meters away and fell into the huge pit that was smashed out by it. Diana stood up, she suddenly felt a chill, she looked up and saw that Ares was slashing at her from a height with a giant axe. Oh! Diana quickly picked up the divine shield beside her, immediately raised it high, and abruptly caught Ares' giant axe slash. Just as Ares was about to pick up the giant axe and continue slashing, a sound of breaking air came, and Ares turned his head to see that an earth dragon knocked him into the ammunition depot 100 meters away. Are you okay? Jiang Li helped Diana up, and said with concern in his tone. I'm okay. At this time, Diana was a little embarrassed, her wheat-colored face was stained with dust, and her originally silky black hair was also messed up because of the battle. Sign into the Wonder Woman series, rewards, Kratos panel, Blade of Chaos. It has the characteristics of attacking gods. Jiang Li looked at the reward this time with some surprise. It just so happened that this time the enemy was Ares, the god of war, and it was fitting to take the power of Kratos, who was a mortal enemy with Ares, to solve the other party. It is worth mentioning that the Kratos template obtained this time is Kratos after becoming the god of war, so it has the divine power to smash mountains and stones and shake the earth. Ares stepped out of the exploding flames, patted the dirt on his armor, and looked at Jiang Li with tyrannical eyes. Magic? I really didn't expect Diana to know such a powerful wizard as you. Seeing this, Diana held the divine shield in her hand to protect Jiang Li behind her, because in her eyes, Jiang Li was a crispy skin who could do magic, and she was worried that she would be broken by Ares's touch. Jiang Li patted Diana's shoulder to reassure her, and then walked behind the ladder. As soon as his mind moved, Kratos' template automatically triggered, and in an instant, a powerful force filled Jiang Li's entire body, which may be the divine power from the god of war position. Jiang Li looked at his hands, still his own skin. Fortunately he didn't need to inherit his appearance, otherwise he felt that his body had a layer of ashes, and he felt strange. Huh? Ares was keenly aware of the changes in Jiang Li's body, and the breath was similar to him. This can't be. Ares already knew what that breath was. It was the breath of the gods, but the breath of each god was different, and what was the breath similar to him on Jiang Li's body? Jiang Li took out the chaos blade from the system's base, and looked at the double blade burning with the unquenchable fire in his hand. He liked it from the bottom of his heart. The corners of his mouth raised a happy smile, and his eyes looked at Ares, who gradually became solemn. Our turn has arrived. Episode 53, Boom. Ares kept wielding his giant axe to block the blades of chaos that swept from both sides, and he had underestimated the power of these two blades before. It was able to scratch his body, and the wound could not heal immediately, as if it was being roasted by fire. Poof. Ares was pierced through his armor by one of the chaos blades, piercing into his flesh and blood, and the flames on the blade kept burning his body. The corner of Jiang Li's mouth raised a sneer, and the chains wrapped around the chaos blade began to turn red, as if they were burned by fire. The temperature on the chaos blade was getting higher and higher, and he even smelled a smell of flesh, which hurt Ares in pain. Seeing that Ares was restrained by the blade of chaos, Diana immediately stepped on both feet, and the whole person jumped high, holding the Vulcan sword high and flying down from the air. Woohoo! With a sound of breaking air. Poof! The Vulcan sword smashed the armor on Ares' chest, leaving a bloody wound on his chest. Ahem! Ares snorted in pain and looked at Diana and Jiang Li with hatred in his eyes. Ever since the man joined the fight, he began to fight with 2 fists and 4 hands, and the fight became more and more difficult, especially which man's strength was unexpectedly strong. It can even be compared to this god of his. You. Who the hell is it? Ares endured the pain caused by the blade of chaos and asked Jiang Li. You don't need to know who I am. As soon as the words fell, Jiang Li pulled hard, and the blade of chaos flew towards the former with Ares. Immediately, Jiang Li kicked Ares' chest, and suddenly Ares' body separated from the chaos blade, spewing scarlet blood. Ares didn't care about the wound, he immediately urged his divine power, levitated the earth and rock fragments around him, and then threw it towards the two. Seeing this, Jiang Li wielded the blade of chaos, and immediately the 2 blades collided in the air, resulting in a violent explosion that shattered all the flying earth and rock fragments. Diana saw the smoke after the explosion, sensed the opportunity, raised her divine shield, and slammed into Ares with a charge. Ares was knocked to 100 meters away, he fell to the ground in pain, and then he saw a figure begin to fall above him. Ares stood up, but he didn't have time to dodge. Jiang Li flew down from a high altitude, and with one hand clenched his fist, he blasted towards Ares. Not to be outdone, Ares also clenched his fists and confronted Jiang Li, but when the 2 fists collided, a crisp sound sounded. It was the sound of fractures coming from Ares' hand. Ahem! Ares fell to the ground in pain, but he didn't expect that the human in front of him actually had such a powerful fist power, and he had been in the inferior position. The corners of Jiang Li's mouth rise, attacking God, boy. Then Jiang Li grabbed the blade of chaos in his hand and stabbed it fiercely into Ares' chest, blood splattered, and the former stepped on the other's wrist with both feet, making the other party unable to move. This time Ares knew that he had been defeated, but instead of begging for mercy, he put down his cruel words, I will come back, as long as there is still war in this world. Jiang Li didn't care at all about Ares' cruel words, and responded in an indifferent tone, then just kill again. The next moment, the chaos blade began to emit a crimson light, and Ares let out a cry of pain, and his body began to crack. Boo! Ares turned into a red light and disappeared into the void. Diana breathed a sigh of relief, she slowly walked to Jiang Li's side, and said with a smile, we won, right? Well, won. With the defeat of Ares, the god of war, Diana and Jiang Li returned to Paradise Island together. When Hippolyta and Antiope learned of Ares' defeat, they both embraced Diana with a look of relief, and she had become an Amazon warrior on her own. They also learned that Jiang Li not only protected Diana during this trip, but also played a major role in the battle against Ares. Jiang Li was immediately invited to be a guest on Paradise Island, and even if they settled on Paradise Island, they were very happy, and even the Amazons on Paradise Island regarded Diana and Jiang Li as idols and were their goal to catch up. Jiang Li must have rejected this kind offer, he has decided to walk this world hand in hand with Diana, and then leave this time and space a few years before he was born, avoiding the possibility of problems in time and space. Time flies, and 50 years have passed in the blink of an eye. Jiang Li accompanied Diana on the land of this world and participated in wars large and small. During these wars, Diana has lost faith and trust in humanity, believing that human wars are not even about Ares, but because of humanity itself. The two sit on a wooden boat returning to Paradise Island. At this time, Diana has lost her childishness at that time and has become quite mature and attractive, but her eyes have become pale. Both are immortals, Diana is a demigod, and Jiang Li is, because he has the Dionysian factor in his body. They sat together in silence, with Diana taking the lead in breaking the silent atmosphere. You're getting out of here, aren't you? Diana's words did not mean that Jiang Li wanted to leave this place, but to leave this time and space. Yes, I've been here long enough. In these 50 years of getting along, Diana knew that Jiang Li was not from her time period, but from the future, and he always knew what would happen in the next moment. Can't you stay a little longer? Even if it's for me. Diana had a little pleading in her eyes, as if she would shed tears in the next moment. Jiang Li shook his head, Diana saw this and no longer endured, hugged the former's neck, and kissed the other's lips gently. After a long time, Diana's eyes were affectionate, and she touched Jiang Li's cheek, I will go to you and tell me where I can find you. Gotham. After the two of them had been warm for a while, Jiang Li turned into a white light and disappeared in front of Diana's eyes. Diana could no longer hold back the sadness of separation, covered her face, and sobbed alone. The princess of the Amazon originally lost faith in the human world, but because of one person, she became her interconnected with the human world. Gotham 30 years later. A couple walking in the park, teasing a little boy in the woman's arms. At this time, a beautiful and moving woman walked up to them and was looking at the baby with wide eyes in the woman's arms. What a cute baby, what's his name? Although the couple was curious about the identity of the woman in front of them, they still patiently replied, his name is Jiang Li. The woman was slightly stunned, the corners of her mouth raised a charming arc, and after saying thank you, she left the couple's field of vision. I'd better wait for you to come to me yourself, which is also the punishment I have waited for you for 40 years. Episode 54. In the blink of an eye, Jiang Li returned to the familiar city, and luckily, in the last chance, successfully returned to Gotham. The time period closest to the original time, Jiang Li asked the people on the side to know that he had been away for a year in this time period. Hopefully nothing big will happen. Jiang Li returned to the manor. When he opened the door and walked in, he found that the room was very deserted, and the once lively house had become unusually quiet. Xiaoba? Xiaofen? Harleen? Jiang Li shouted around, but no one responded to him. Knock knock. The sound of high heels stepping on the floor sounded slowly. Jiang Li looked at it when he heard the sound and found that it was Black Lily who came over. Fortunately there were still people here, otherwise he would have thought that something big had happened. Black Lily could feel the connection between herself and Jiang Li, so it was right to be sure that the person in front of her was her master. Where have you been this year? That's a long story, what about the others? Black Lily sat on the sofa, took a sip of black tea, and said, after you disappeared for a few days, the girls in the family were very anxious. Jiang Li and Black Lily sat together, listening to each other talk about the changes in the past year. Barbara and Stephanie use Batman's supercomputer to find Jiang Li, and Bruce realizes that this concerns Jiang Li and readily agrees. Selena was a little heartless and lungless, and without Jiang Li's company, she reincarnated as Catwoman and stole precious jewelry outside, but she would come back to sleep every morning, and she slept in Jiang Li's room. The most exaggerated is Hallie. She is actually alone in Gotham to find the trace of Jiang Li, and uses the method of breaking into the house. Hallie even injured a lot of people, but fortunately, there was no fatality, and the compensation was handled by Bruce alone. If it weren't for Black Lily protecting in the shadows, maybe Hallie would be being pointed at the head right now. Sheriff Gordon arrested the troublesome Harley into the police station, but because of Harley's overly boisterous nature, the colleagues in the police department could not bear it. In addition, Hallie's spirit is a bit of a problem, so Gordon plans to send Harley to Arkham, and Bruce is well aware of the relationship between Hallie and Jiang Li, so he does not receive any bad treatment in Arkham. I saw the place when I visited the prison, just like a little princess's room. If it weren't for Harley's listless face, I would have thought she was traveling there. After Jiang Li listened, he immediately got up and prepared to go to Arkham to bring Harley back, but when he didn't take a few steps, he was stopped by Black Lily. Actually, there's one more thing you don't know. What? The clown is not dead, he is still alive. Hearing this, Jiang Li frowned. He remembered that he had buried the clown in the soil last time. Could it be that he didn't understand enough about the setting of the Dionysian factor? Did he miss a step? But Jiang Li never expected that the key to the clown's resurrection was that the clown's younger brother planned to take the clown's body back to claim the king. Leave this alone, now I'll bring Harley back first. Jiang Li came to the gate of the Arkham Asylum. The environment here is lifeless, and the sky is covered with dark clouds and lightning. This ghost place that absorbs talent is really weird. Suddenly, Jiang Li stopped moving forward because he detected a familiar breath. It was the breath of Bruce. Bruce, who had already turned into Batman, fell behind Jiang Li and said to him, "You finally came back after a year of disappearance. Tell me where you've been this year?" Jiang Li has Arkham's pass, and he and Bruce walk on the way into Arkham Asylum. "This matter is very complicated, I'll tell you later, now bring my crazy girlfriend out first." Bruce was silent and agreed with Jiang Li's words, and then they went to the separate ward where Harley was being held very smoothly. The guards here are all women, and the ward where Harley is held is mainly pink, and dolls and stuffed toys are also scattered around the ward. Jiang Li's eyelids jumped, and he swept his gaze to Bruce on the side. If he didn't know that this was Arkham, he would have thought that this was the room of which princess. Bruce shrugged, his tone was cold, and he said expressionlessly, "I thought she would like it. Let me out. My sweetheart is still waiting for me to save." I saw that Hallie kept pounding the bulletproof glass window of the cell, and the surrounding prison guards seemed to be used to it, so they all wore noise-canceling headphones in their ears. "Harleen." Jiang Li called softly. Harley was slightly stunned, and when she saw the man she was thinking of was right in front of her, she was immediately surprised and jumped on the spot. "Leave, my little sweetheart." Bruce motioned for the prison guard to open the cell door, and when the cell door opened, Harley couldn't wait to pounce. "My little sweetheart, where have you gone? Don't take me with you." Harley looked very hungry and printed red lip prints on Jiang Li's face. Okay, you come down first." Jiang Li gently pushed Harley, who was hanging on him. I'm going to replenish the sweetheart energy of separation." Bruce wisely distanced himself from this place of right and wrong, because someone is still a widow. Gotta find a way to get Bruce married. Such thoughts flashed in Jiang Li's mind, and he didn't think about it anymore. After all, he still had many confidants who were not comforted. After that, Jiang Li returned to his manor, and it happened that Barbara and Stephanie also returned here, and both of them hugged Jiang Li with tears in their eyes. Only Selena's heartless face was flat, as if she knew that Jiang Li would not have an accident, but she was also happy from the bottom of her heart for Jiang Li's return. Alas, my damn charm, Jiang Li thought, very distressed. Night. Jiang Li, who was lying on the bed, looked at his hands that were shackled to the head of the bed, and then looked at Barbara, who was standing at the end of the bed. At this time, Barbara was wearing the suit of the Batgirl, and the tight arc perfectly outlined Barbara's figure. "Shaba, what kind of play are you doing?" The corners of Barbara's mouth raised a charming arc, and then sat on Jiang Li's waist. Her jade hand gently stroked Jiang Li's abdomen, and said to herself, "Tonight, Batgirl interrogates a special criminal who hides a weapon of lethality and must use all means to get him to hand over the weapon." So in the next second, Barbara's graceful figure leaned down slightly. Episode 55. After Jiang Li returned to his timeline, he spent an uneventful month, nothing major happened, and the clown disappeared again. Jiang Li also specially ran to Paris to reunite with Diana, and the two returned to their manor after being together for half a month. As for bringing Diana back, Jiang Li's reason for himself is that Diana has her own museum job, and most importantly, he has a lot of confidants in his family, and he is worried about the outbreak of the Azure Field. At this time, Jiang Li and DC Soul Dick Grayson were fishing overseas, and their location was quite close to Metropolis and Gotham City. Wayne brand fishing boat, clean and noble, familiar black color, everything you should have, which is why Jiang Li wants to pull the Wayne family to fish. Dick yawned, tears in his eyes. He was so bored that he hadn't caught a single fish so far. Woo-ha-ha-ha, hooked again. The bored Dick glanced at the bucket at Jiang Li's feet, and there were really many kinds of fish inside. "And his is empty. I specially took a leave from the police station. I thought you would take me to a party, but you took me to this big blue sea to fish and be with fish?" Dick Grayson is a police officer in Bridhaven Police Department, and instead of accompanying the female police officers, he runs to accompany his friends to catch boring fish, and Dick can't wait to slap himself. Jiang Li didn't care about Dick's complaints at all, and said with a heartless smile, "Oh, those few people in your family are not available. Bruce, you also know, I can't wait to stare at his Gotham City every day, and Jason is too, busy with his own ideas. Tim is training, just you are the most idle, just care about the girls in the police station." When he went to find Dick, the other party was chatting with the female police officer. If he arrived later, it was estimated that he could only see Dick, who opened a room with the female police officer in the hotel. The humanoid self-propelled cannon was immediately unhappy when he heard it. "What do you call me the most idle? I'm a Nightwing. Bridhaven is waiting for me to save." "Ah, yes, so big hero Nightwing, you can save my shriveled wallet first. After all, I don't have much money to rent fishing boats and fishing equipment." Dick laughed angrily when he heard it. Jiang Li will have no money? In so many years, Jiang Li has long ago not known how many times he has cut off the gangster transactions, turning those black money into his own assets through the Wayne Group. With the precipitation of time, Jiang Li's total assets have gradually climbed to the seat of Gotham's second richest man, and he has established his own investment company. Wayne Group, Lex Group, Ferris Airlines all have investments, and are currently operated by Barbara and Black Lily and Selena. A certain man surnamed Wayne didn't care about this matter and turned a blind eye. The generosity of money is only generous to their own women, but for these male friends, they are biased. Just as Dick was about to go back to Jiang, he saw smoke rising in the distance, and he shouted to the latter, "Hey, Jiang, look over there." Jiang Li first glanced at Dick suspiciously, and then looked in the direction he was pointing, and sure enough, as Dick said, there seemed to be a big fire there, and black smoke was rising into the sky. "Let's take a look." Dick was convicted of occupational disease and immediately came to the driver's seat and drove the fishing boat in the direction of the fire. As they approached, they saw an explosion in a drilling well, with only a rescue plane flying through the air. At this moment, Jiang Li's sight sensed a powerful aura, and it was under their boat. "Dick, someone under our boat has fallen overboard." When Dick heard this, he quickly ran to Jiang Li's side, looked towards the sea, and indeed saw a figure in the sea. Without saying a word, he took off his clothes, leaving only a pair of boxers, revealing his hips that were even more upturned than ordinary women, and then jumped into the sea to rescue the person who fell into the water to the fishing boat. Jiang Li looked at the person who was rescued by Dick, and immediately knew the identity of the person in front of him, the familiar ass chin, coupled with the unprecedented powerful aura, he was the future Superman Clark Kent, also known as Kal-El. It turns out that the plot of Man of Steel begins. Dick wiped his body with a towel, and saw that Jiang Li had been staring at the person who had just been rescued by him, and asked with some doubt, "How, do you know him?" "Yes, it's just that he doesn't know me." Dick raised his eyebrows, a little confused by Jiang Li's words, and then didn't think too much, because soon, the man he rescued woke up. Jiang Li smiled and walked to him and squatted, "Yo boy, you are awake, the operation is successful." "Ignore him, are you alright?" Dick glanced at Jiang Li, and said to Clark with concern in his tone. The bearded Clark first glanced at Jiang Li and Dick suspiciously, then stood up and said with gratitude in his tone, "Thank you for your help." "Put it on, big man." Jiang Li smiled and handed Clark the clothes that Dick had worn before, which provoked Dick's angry eyes, but Jiang Li didn't care at all. Then, they set out on the way to send Clark home. Jiang Li and Dick, as two courtesans, naturally chatted well with Clark. Both of them revealed their real names to Clark, but only Clark was deliberately hiding his real name, and Dick did not care. Only Jiang Li knew that the other party had been deliberately hiding himself because of his adoptive father. Even if he was working, he used a fake ID card and name. Soon, after docking, the two bid farewell to the future Superman Clark. Jiang Li stretched his lazy waist, and then glanced at the watch on his wrist. He also planned to go to France to accompany his Diana. "I have to go with my Wonder Girlfriend, you can take care of yourself." Hearing this, Dick witnessed Jiang Li's departure with a black face, asked him to fish at sea, and then patted his ass and left without even saying a word. This bastard wouldn't have come to the White Whore equipment and fishing boats, would he? Episode 56. These days, Jiang Li is a busy person, because there are no major events to participate in, resulting in Jiang Li can only enjoy in the gentle township. Jiang Li often scolds himself, "Don't let desire break through your will." Then immediately fell into Diana's gentle embrace. There are so many wonderful and beautiful girlfriends, who wants to become a monk? Jiang Li came to the villa that Diana bought in Paris, France, which is also interesting to say. Diana actually took the antiques from Paradise Island and sold them in the human world and became a little rich woman. He opened the door with the key, and then saw Diana eating breakfast there in thin home pajamas. Diana's beautiful and moving side provoked Jiang Li's heartstrings. Embarrassed to pinch, now Jiang Li's uncle and I, have been shot through the will by desire. "Why are you here?" Diana only saw Jiang Li striding in front of her, hugged her, and led her into her room. Diana didn't know what Jiang Li, the little wolf, wanted to do, but after she knew the essence of food, she was also very happy to linger with Jiang Li. After gently patting Jiang Li's chest, he moved his body on the bed to make himself more comfortable, and said with a smile, "I came here once a few days ago, you have to know moderation." Temperance fart, can only say that the physique between people cannot be generalized. Jiang Li now dares to ask, super soldier physique, super energy plus super physical strength, three brothers on it, there is a combination of generals. The three abilities are combined. Diana, how can it be difficult? Jiang Li smiled disdainfully, and the two of them instantly entered a state of battle, and now among the many confidants, only Diana, who is a demigod, can withstand the attack from Jiang Li. The rest were beheaded after only 3 rounds, defeated and unable to continue. From the crisp morning to the noon when the sun was blazing, the battle between the two finally subsided, ending in a tie between the two sides. Diana's eyes were full of happiness, and she was lying in Jiang Li's arms with a red face, and Jiang Li touched Diana's smooth skin without end. He has to admit that in the world of American comics, the beauty and skin of these heroines are exceptional, at least he has experienced it many times. And Diana's figure is more powerful, reaching just the right level, not overly full of muscles, at least the abs vest line full of beauty greatly satisfies Jiang Li's desire for conquest and satisfies Jiang Li's rich ex fetish. The whole room seems to be a little cracked because of the destruction of the two people, whether it is the table, the counter, and other furniture. Obviously the action of playing poker just now is too heavy. Diana had some attributes of a good wife and mother, and after the two got up, they cleaned up a messy room alone. Later, the two came to the living room together, making a delicious lunch to replenish their physical strength. Of course, there will inevitably be some ambiguous physical contact during the cooking process. At the dinner table, the two happily settled their lunch, and Diana said as she ate, "In a few weeks, my sister Donna will stay with us for a while." Jiang Li naturally knew who Diana was talking about. He had been on Paradise Island for 50 years, and naturally he also knew his sister-in-law Donna Troy. "Then I haven't seen that little girl for 50 years, and it is estimated that these 50 years have made the other party a beautiful girl." At the same time, Diana learned that just 10 years ago, a new member came to Paradise Island, said to be Zeus's daughter left by the affair, Diana's half-sister. Jiang Li listened. "Isn't this Cassie?" Cassie Sandmark, also known as Cassandra Sandmark, is the second Wonder Girl after Donna Troy, a young girl who is 14 years old. Unexpectedly, the Wonder Woman family has appeared, and it is quite happy to think about it when she gets two beautiful sisters-in-law in the future. Suddenly, the LCD TV screen that was originally turned off in the living room kept flickering, which looked extremely strange. Diana frowned and cast her doubtful gaze at Jiang Li, who also frowned. And after Jiang Li met Superman by chance, it was easy to guess what was going on. One of Superman's enemies, General Zod, has arrived on Earth. Soon, the TV began to return to normal, and what appeared on the screen was an extremely blurry and chaotic face. My name is Zod, I come from a distant planet, I have crossed countless star seas to come to Earth, and for some time now, your world has sheltered one of my people of Krypton. I ask you to return it to me. For some reason he chose to keep his secret from you, he tried to fit in, he looked like you, but he did not belong to you. Kal-El, come out and surrender within 24 hours, or the world will bear the consequences. As soon as the voice fell, the TV returned to a black screen, as if nothing had just happened. Do you need me to make a move? Diana looked at Jiang Li with some worry. She had fallen in love with this ordinary life, and she didn't want to pick up the sword in her hand anymore. But if it was for Jiang Li, she was willing to put on that suit of armor again and pick up those artifacts. Jiang Li saw the worry and concern in Diana's eyes, and he smiled and stroked the latter's cheek. Don't worry, someone will make a move. It doesn't matter, Jiang Li will make a move. Episode 57, the day before Zod's arrival. Clark traveled to the North Pole, met reporter Louise, and discovered the Kryptonian spacecraft that had arrived on Earth more than 20,000 years ago. At the same time, he also really learned where he came from, who his biological parents were, and what his real name was. Also learning about Krypton's glory period to the final period of destruction, Clark even learned from his biological father Joe that there was something strange about Krypton's destruction, but he didn't know either. Carl, my child. You are not alone, you have a cousin who also managed to escape from Krypton, but for some special reason, she did not reach Earth in time. Clark nodded when he heard this, and he was also a little happy in his heart, because it showed that he also had a family connected by blood. Why don't you join me? Joel's eyes darkened a little. We can't, because we were born on Krypton. The meaning of this sentence is that Joel and others are Kryptonians artificially bred by Kryptonian, and they have been branded in their bones to survive on Kryptonian from birth. Even Clark's cousin escaped, because her parents forcibly let her into the cosmic escape capsule. If Zod and the others were not banished to another space, then even Zod and the others would have been destroyed along with Krypton. In fact, the destruction of Krypton was not self-destructive. What do you mean? Clark asked. Joel said solemnly, Bleeniac, he disrupted the geocentric balance of Krypton, and at the last moment, Kara and you successfully escaped from Kryptonium and survived. Someday in the future, Brainiac will set his sights on the planet, and you must grow up, find Kara, and then unite the guardians of the planet to fight Brainiac together. After that, Clark put on the red and blue color uniforms on the Kryptonian spaceship, that is, the classic Superman suit, and truly experienced the thrill of flying. Time returns to normal. Zod and his party travel to rural Kent and meet Clark's adoptive mother, Martha. Martha looked at the menacing Zod and the others, and immediately knew in her heart that the other party was coming to find her son, and there was no good look on her face for an instant. Where's the spaceship he made when he came? Zod asked directly. Sure enough, it was coming to his son's trouble, and Martha immediately responded, go and die. When Zod heard this, his face under the mask flashed with impatience, and his eyes fell on Fiona beside him. Fiona immediately grabbed Martha's neck and lifted her in the air, making it a little difficult for the latter to breathe. I have limited time, tell me. Martha looked at the warehouse not far away with difficulty, and Zod accurately caught Martha's eyes, pointed to the warehouse, and said, there. Fiona threw it casually, threw Martha aside, jumped lightly, jumped in from the roof of the warehouse, and immediately saw Clark's spaceship to Earth. Bang! Fiona rudely opened the ship's cabin, but never saw their Kryptonian code. She returns to Zod's side and tells him that the secret code is not in Clark's ship. Zod took a deep breath, anger began to fill his heart, and directly threw the car on the side into the house, smashing the Kent couple's house. Where did he hide the secret code? Where's the secret? Martha was frightened by Zod, and this angered Clark, the Superman who flew in from a distance. Superman flew with Zod, crashing into an unknown number of buildings, and during the flight, Superman grabbed Zod with one hand and clenched his fist in the other hand to greet Zod's face. How dare you threaten my mother? Eventually, they fly to a small town, crash a gas station, and the battle between Superman and Zod and his party officially begins. At the next moment, Zod stood up and didn't say anything, and an earth dragon suddenly burst out on the ground on the side, and the dragon's mouth bit Zod's body, constantly biting each other. Superman was confused until his familiar voice came from behind him, it's good that I'm not late, otherwise I missed a good show. This voice was heard by Superman, and when he looked back, he saw Jiang Li wearing sunglasses standing behind him with a smile. Why are you here? It's dangerous here, you get out of here. Superman hurriedly urged, because Jiang Li was an ordinary person in his eyes, and he might not be able to withstand Zod's punch. I came to the metropolis from Gotham specifically to see what aliens look like. You shouldn't bear to drive me away, right? Jiang Li smiled and punched Superman's chest hard. Anyway, with Superman's physique, he would not feel pain, and this punch really triggered the check-in reward. Sign into the Superman series and reward Doomsday Bloodlines. Optimized version of Doomsday Bloodline has unlimited physical energy that will never feel tired, superhuman strength and jumping power, super healing ability, and super physique that can never be killed with the same method. The optimized version of Doomsday Bloodline also removes bad abilities such as loss of reason and ugly appearance. Hearing the electronic sound of the system, Jiang Li knew that this time was not in vain. It was really worthy of the Superman series, allowing him to get the ability to walk sideways in the DC universe. Now he has both Doomsday Bloodline and Dionysian Factor, and it is estimated that it is really difficult for him to die. Zod broke free from the Earth Dragon's bite and broke the Earth Dragon's head with one punch. And Jiang Li didn't bother to continue the magic power, so that the Earth Dragon did not continue to regenerate, but collapsed on its own. Zod, whose mask was destroyed, could not withstand the effects of the yellow sun and the Earth's environment, and was then brought back to the Kryptonian spacecraft by the arriving Kryptonian soldiers. Only Adjutant Fiona and a tall Kryptonian man remained in place and confronted Jiang Li with Superman. One for each person, which one do you want to choose? Jiang Li stood next to Superman and asked, anyway, he has a destroying sun physique, and he is not afraid of a few more Kryptonians. Superman was slightly stunned, and then really selected. The female Kryptonian seemed to be quite weak, so he simply left it to Jiang Li. So Superman chose a tall Kryptonian on the side to deal with the stronger enemy in his eyes. Jiang Li was also very happy to face Fiona. He had long been interested in this heroic female adjutant. It would be funny if he made her cry. Superman was still a little worried about Jiang Li's involvement in it, and he couldn't help but remind, you have to be careful, they are all Kryptonians like me. Jiang Li smiled slightly. At this moment, his hands were itchy, eager to fight. Episode 58. In the calm uninhabited desert, the little lizard of the third wife is leisurely basking in the sun, but the next moment its beast pupils are reflecting the scene it sees. A black figure quickly fell from the air and smashed on the ground with a bang, setting off a thick burst of dust. In the deep pit, Fiona stood up with difficulty, tore open the mask of her face with one hand, and suddenly the influence of the yellow sun and the Earth's environment made her face hideous. In Fiona's eyes, her hands directly turned into skull bones, and the noise such as the wind around her and the breathing of animals constantly rushed into her ears. Jiang Li, who jumped directly from the town to Fiona, was looking at the other party with a smile, but he didn't expect that he could knock the other party so far with one punch. What did you do to me? Fiona shouted to Jiang Li with anger. It must have been the man opposite her who caused her current situation. You are a Kryptonian and naturally do not adapt to the environment of the Earth, but in contrast, the radiation of the yellow sun is a great supplement for Kryptonians, and soon you will be completely new. Jiang Li didn't care at all about telling her this information, because he was fearless, and he had Doomsday Bloodline to do whatever he wanted. Try to focus on what you want to see and hear. Jiang Li taught Fiona like a mentor. He had just obtained the Doomsday Bloodline, and naturally needed a qualified sandbag to get through the addiction. As for whether it will be eaten back, but defeated by Fiona? Just kidding, not every Kryptonian is a Superman Carl-Well, able to tear the day of destruction by hand. Soon, Fiona really listened to Jiang Li's words, and began to close her eyes and feel. Her senses automatically blocked out unwanted noisy information. She returned to her original appearance. You shouldn't have taught me something so important, and you'll regret it. Fiona said coldly that as long as she told this information to her colleagues, it would be easier to seize the Earth. Jiang Li also saw Fiona's thoughts, and immediately said with a smile, don't worry, you won't have a chance to tell them, because either they die first, or you fall first. Be ashamed. Fiona snorted softly, and instantly burst out on the spot, rushing towards Jiang Li like a shooting star. Jiang Li abruptly took Fiona's punch, and the fist broke through the sound barrier to produce a sonic boom, directly sending the former hundreds of meters away. Jiang Li slowly stabilized his figure in the air, and finally landed calmly on the ground, after the punch just now, although he felt pain, but then the pain quickly disappeared, replaced by a sense of comfort. It's a wonderful feeling. Jiang Li clenched his fists heavily, feeling the comfort brought by the new power, and a sense of battle intent surged in his heart. It was a devastating factor from the Doomsday Bloodline, which should be systematically optimized and turned into an extremely belligerent psychology. Jiang Li's eyes froze, and with one step, the whole person jumped towards Fiona at a speed of 100 meters. Immediately, the two fought together. Fiona, as an adjutant of Krypton, naturally knows the skills of hand-to-hand combat, but Jiang Li is also not bad. The two fight more and more fiercely, and everything around them is destroyed by the strong aftermath. I don't know if it was Fiona's illusion, she felt that the man who was fighting with her in front of her seemed to be adapting to her fighting style, and gradually fell into the downside. Boo. In the end, Fiona couldn't resist it, and was slammed in the abdomen by Jiang Li's punch, and suddenly her whole body flew hundreds of meters away and hit a stone mountain. Fiona walked out of the depression of the stone mountain unsteadily, touched her abdomen that had just been bombarded by Jiang Li's fist, and felt a few fragments of the battle armor. This guy's strength is so strong, it seems that he does not feel fatigue, but the more courageous he is, at first he can balance each other, but in the end, he gradually loses the enemy and falls into the downside. He must be left here, Fiona secretly decided in her heart, she must not let the other party stop General Zod's plan to revive Krypton. A cold light flashed in Fiona's eyes, and she quickly grabbed a boulder next to her and threw it towards Jiang Li, 100 meters away. Jiang Li did not dodge, and burst the boulder with a punch, setting off a burst of dust and smoke, and then he saw the dust and smoke flashed a red light, and soon a heat ray shot at him. The air was filled with the smell of meat, but after the influence of the super healing ability, coupled with the resistance generated by the Doomsday bloodline, the heat rays gradually had no effect on Jiang Li. In the end, the heat rays could only have a repulsive effect on Jiang Li, and had no other substantial effect. Fiona's eyes shot out heat rays, and she began to gasp for breath, but the sun's radiation had been helping Fiona recover her strength. The corners of Jiang Li's mouth raised, his eyes began to glow red, and he said softly, "It's up to me." Boom. Suddenly, an even more powerful heat ray burst out from Jiang Li's eyes. Seeing this, Fiona immediately interlaced her arms to block the heat ray, but she still couldn't resist the power of the heat ray, and was rebombarded into the previous stone mountain. Jiang Li withdrew the heat ray, and then jumped lightly, came to the stone mountain, grabbed the depression roughly, and pulled Fiona out of the hole by the neck. Fiona opened her eyes with difficulty, staring at Jiang Li in front of her deadly, "You." This monster. She was sure that the man in front of her was not a Kryptonian, but he had similar abilities to their Kryptonians, such as the heat ray just now. Jiang Li's existence reminds her of an experimental black history before Krypton, which also created an unprecedented monster. Boo. Jiang Li punched Fiona hard in the abdomen, and Fiona rolled her eyes and fell into a state of unconsciousness. Caught a wild Kryptonian. Jiang Li carried Fiona's body and walked in the desert, and no one knew where he was going with Adjutant Krypton except Jiang Li himself. Episode 59. The subsequent plot has become obvious. In terms of talent and growth, Zod and others are not at all the opponents of Superman. Clark, the planetary modifier, is destroyed, and even Zod himself died at the hands of Superman. Metropolis finally returned to calm after a superhuman devastation, and Superman became synonymous with hope and God in the mouths of some Metropolis residents. Only the families of those who died in that great war rated Superman completely differently and recalled destroyers with contempt for life. People with different positions and different evaluations have set off a storm of contradictions, and gradually, some people have begun to fear the destructive power of Superman. Bruce, on the other hand, witnessed the death of his own employees, the collapse of Wayne's office building, an unknown number of casualties, and a girl who lost her mother. This fills Bruce's eyes with anger, and the object of anger is Superman from Metropolis. Jiang Li knows the plot of the movie well, and there are people behind the scenes, a man named Lex Luthor, a human who can't wait to kill Superman. He came to Wayne Manor and met Bruce, who was beginning to be calculated, but unfortunately Bruce did not know that there was a rhythm among them, otherwise Bruce would have woken up. The girl who lost her mother in that battle became a strip of cloth that blinded Bruce's eyes. "Bruce, you've been a little wrong lately." Jiang Li knows the plot of the movie, plus Fu also tells him that the recent Bruce has been blinded by that experience and has begun to identify Superman as an enemy. "I'm fine, Jiang." Bruce put the brewed black tea on the table in front of Jiang Li and said. Jiang Li is helpless, but this kind of hostility is sometimes a good thing. After all, the superhuman has gone crazy and out of control more than once in the future, and staying vigilant is the best way. "Master Wayne, Mr. Jiang. Here are 2 of your letters." Fu, who entered the living room, handed the two letters. Then Fu saw the red wine bottle next to Bruce's table, and immediately complained to his master, "I don't want the next generation of the Wayne family to inherit an empty wine cellar." As if there would be a next generation, Fu muttered softly. Bruce helplessly also made a cup of black tea for Afu, and then lit the keyboard of a notebook and said, "This is all the calls on the phone of that suspicious Russian." There were 2 references to business with the white Portuguese and continued transmission of hidden data to Lex Luthor's private residence. Fu looked at the data on the laptop screen and said faintly, "Do you think that Lex Luthor is a white Portuguese? But I don't think he needs to import weapons to make money." Bruce thought about it and said, "Anyway, I've got to put a stealer in his house." Afu glanced at Bruce and knew that Bruce planned to infiltrate Luthor's hometown as Batman, and he rejected the idea. That Bat interrogated 6 people and found nothing, so only Bruce Wayne got the information. But Bruce Wayne can't break into Lex Luthor's house. Jiang Li, who had been listening to the conversation between the two, opened the envelope at this time and took out the 2 invitations inside. In fact, you don't have to barge in this time, because this time we were invited. And Jiang Li knew that this invitation was a trap for inviting people to enter the game, and both Superman and Batman were calculated by some future bald man. Subsequently, Jiang Li left Wayne Manor, and on the way back to his manor, he received a call from Diana. It turned out that Diana had also received an invitation from Luthor, and no one would invite an unknown employee who worked at the museum unless there was something interesting about her. And what place will Diana care about? It is nothing more than her identity as Wonder Woman. Luthor already knows Diana's true identity. Superman and Batman were all known to Luthor as their true identities, so they said that this invitation was an invitation to invite everyone to enter the game. Don't worry, I'll go with you. At night, Lex Luthor's villa. Jiang Li and Diana attend the banquet together, and when they arrive at the scene, Bruce goes to secretly record the information, and Clark is doing his duty as a reporter. Luthor deliberately tells the story of Prometheus saving humanity and stopping Zeus from trying to destroy humanity nonsensically on the podium, from which he buried another meaning. He hates God, just like Superman, who is known as a god on Earth, a god with the power to destroy mankind. And he does charity. Building libraries is like Prometheus giving mankind a fire. Diana rolled her eyes, undoubtedly talking about her family affairs, and using exaggerated body language. Clark then approached Bruce, and the two tested each other, and soon Luthor also interjected into the chat, mentioning that there were good things in his lab. Lex Luthor is a human supremacist who believes that the appearance of superhumans weakens human potential, and thus makes him an enemy of superhumans. But slowly, this hatred of Superman gradually turned into jealousy of his power and fame. Jiang Li witnessed the conversation between the three, but he was now going to another place. He let Diana go back by himself, and he went alone to the Kryptonian spaceship that had fallen in the metropolis, where he had what he wanted, knowledge from Krypton. Jiang Li easily mixed in, because he had a super hacker like Barbara, and the price was one night's public food. Okay, go ahead. Jiang Li took the fingerprint extracted from Fiona and entered the pool inside the Kryptonian spacecraft. The Krypton archive contains knowledge from 100,000 different worlds. Very good, leave it to me. A lot of knowledge poured into Jiang Li's mind, and a lot of information appeared in Jiang Li's mind, although most of that information he knew. For example, the Dark Monarch Darkseid. Episode 60, Time flies by. The conflict between Superman and Batman is on the verge of breaking out. The two fought for a long time on the abandoned port, and finally Superman was defeated, and he woke up because of Superman and Louise's Martha. Superman said with difficulty at Batman's feet, "You killed Martha after him." Combined with Louise, who rushed in, Martha was Superman's mother, and Bruce knew that he was calculated and almost became the criminal he hated when Crime Alley killed his mother. I also saw the humanity that belongs to Superman. The two work together. Bruce rescues Martha, and Clark confronts Luthor on the Kryptonian spaceship and bluntly claims that the other party has lost. But he underestimates Luthor's cleverness and madness, and he meets Luthor's final whole card, a monster created using Krypton knowledge and Zod's corpse. Superman and Pirate Doomsday fight in the metropolis, and two destructive superhumans make a mess of the newly restored metropolis. The military saw the destructive power of Doomsday and would use nuclear weapons at any cost, even if it took Superman's life. But unfortunately, instead of dying in space, Doom's sun absorbed energy from nuclear bombs, and the body evolved bone spurs. When it returns to the ground, it flattens an uninhabited island, and Bruce knows that the other party is a creature from Krypton, so he leads Doomsday to the abandoned port just now. Bruce is shot down by Doomsday's heat ray, and his seatbelt traps him in the driver's seat, and Doomsday is not far away, and the heat ray is ready to go. Boo! Diana descended from the air, raised her hands, and blocked the heat rays with her Guardian silver bracelet. Diana's eyes froze, and the two Guardian silver bracelets collided together, and a strong shockwave repelled the Doomsday Day. Boom! With a sound barrier breaking through the air, Superman returns from space and flies the Day of Doom into a building not far away with a punch, causing a violent explosion. Jiang Li stepped forward and ripped off Bruce's seat belt, who nodded to him, and walked out of the Batfighter that had been reduced to scrap metal. This port has been abandoned, and there are weapons here that can kill it, Batman said while sorting out his equipment. Superman fell in front of the trio, and he said to Batman, "Did you find that spear?" The corner of Batman's mouth twitched. Didn't he know that he almost burped just now? I was a little busy just now. Diana's eyes looked at Doomsday in the explosion, and spoke, this creature seems to live on energy. Jiang Li stood with the three of them, facing against the Day of Doom, who began to absorb energy. Superman looked at Doom's son standing in the flames with complicated eyes. This creature is from another world, from my world. Boom! Suddenly, there was another sound of breaking through the sky, and all four of them looked up, and even the pirated Doom's son in the flames cast their eyes into the sky, because it felt an aura that was very familiar with it. A meteor crossed the sky and landed precisely in the middle of the four people and the pirated Doomsday, which was an iron box similar to a prison. Bang! Suddenly, a giant hand with sharp bone spurs pierced the iron box, and a huge figure crawled out of it. The figure was familiar, similar to the pirated Doomsday, but the bone spurs on the body were sharper and sharper, and the body was relatively large. Jiang Li couldn't help but widen his eyes when he saw it. It was another Doomsday at all, and it was a genuine Doomsday, not a pirated copy made by Luther on the other side. The real Doomsday first glanced at Jiang Li and the other four, and then turned his head to look at another pirated Doomsday day. Roar! Facing the exact same self, the two Doomsday roared at each other at the same time. Except for Jiang Li, the other three were all confused, and they didn't know how an identical monster suddenly popped up again. Jiang Li's eyes rarely appeared solemn, and he said to Batman on the side, "You hurry up and find that kryptonite spear, you find Louise first, she knows where it is, and we will deal with them." Batman can't fight an encounter, so he can only let the other party find the kryptonite spear. Hearing this, Batman nodded without hesitation, and then entered the abandoned building to find Louise and her discarded kryptonite spear. Bang bang! Before Jiang Li and the others could make a move, the two Doomsday on the opposite side had already fought on their own, beating the surrounding ground and rocks flying around. It seems that they are not used to each other, and they will fight first. We can wait until they're done fighting before we intervene. Superman's proposal was vetoed by Jiang Li not long after. This method does not work, because they don't know when the fight will be finished, and they don't feel tired. At that time, the two Doomsday don't know how far they have evolved. If they evolve to the extent that they have doomspores, they can parasitize others after the body is destroyed, and gradually devour the host until the Doomsday is resurrected again. At that point, it's really hard to fight. As soon as Jiang Li's words fell, the pirated Doomsday was pounded by the genuine version and flew upside down in the direction of their side like a broken kite. The three of them flashed quickly, and at the same time, the sight of the genuine Doomsday locked on Superman flying in the air, and its goal suddenly changed. And the pirate Doomsday naturally found Jiang Li and Diana. Seeing the change in the situation, Jiang Li could only sigh helplessly and said, "Well, it seems that he has to intervene."